All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public service they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. That's why our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more, by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before, by cracking down on illegal hiring, by barring welfare benefits to illegal aliens. In the budget I will present to you, we will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crimes, to better identify illegal aliens in the workplace, as recommended by the commission headed by former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan. We are a nation of immigrants, but we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do more to stop it.
We are a generous and welcoming people here in the United States, but those who enter the country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law, and they are showing disregard for those who are following the law. We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants in this.
Okay, what's going on, everybody? We are here. We're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a 1 in the live chat. And as I'm waiting for the ones to come in, if you haven't already, please hit the like button, because that's the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does is that it helps make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get the notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm as well. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, or if you've been ghost watching this channel for quite some time now, a lot of ghost watchers out there, please hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure to share this video out on your social media platforms to your family and friends to inform them of this news and information. And it does also give me a slight little bit of a boost in the YouTube algorithm also. So do me a favor and do that as well. And now that I see the ones are coming into the stream, let's get today's show started. Let's get today's show started. So I'm sure many of you saw the title of today's video. Obviously you did, right? You know, before you clicked on it. And if I remember what the title of today's video is, the title of today's stream is Biden stated that migrants are the reason the U.S. economy is currently thriving. This is what he said recently in a discussion that he had with a group. I believe it was Asian Americans, and a conversation that he had with them. But what was interesting about that conversation is that in an attempt to justify the migrant crisis that's happening now, because that's indeed what he was doing. That's what he was attempting to do. In my opinion, I assume, right? In his attempt to do that, he thoroughly offended our allies in Japan and India by referring to them as being xenophobic. Yeah, we refer to our allies as being xenophobic in an attempt to justify open borders and the migrant crisis that's happening here in this country. So let's get into that right now. I want to get into that right now. I want to pull this article up for you guys, a couple of articles. We're going to go through maybe about 3 of them, and hopefully I will have time to get to some extra information that will bleed into tomorrow's stream as well. But let's get into the crux of what we're really here for right now. If I'm using that word correctly, the crux? I don't know. Sounded good in my head. I'm not sure if that's correct. It might be. But anyways, let's start with this article here. And also, as usual, the links to everything you see on your screen right now will be in the description box below if you'd like to read these articles independent of my commentary. And I suggest that you do. I think that that's very important because I don't read everything that's in these articles, right? I cut a lot out sometimes, like I am today, just to get through things rather quickly and to highlight certain points. But now what I want to do is highlight the point that I was making at the top of the stream, right? How Biden called out our allies that we need in Japan and India and refer to them as xenophobic in an attempt to justify the current migrant crisis that's happening here in this country. So let's get into it. President Joe Biden has called Japan and India xenophobic countries that do not welcome immigrants. I repeat, President Joe Biden has called Japan and India xenophobic countries that do not welcome immigrants, lumping the two with adversaries, China and Russia, as he tried to explain their economic circumstances and contrasted the four with the U.S. on immigration. Essentially what he stated, and I believe I'm going to read that further in this article if I have it highlighted, but what he said about Japan and India is that you guys are struggling economically because you're xenophobic, because you don't have open borders, because you just won't let people in your country willy-nilly like we do over here. And if you would do that like we're doing here, then your economy wouldn't be struggling the way it is, the same way China's economy is struggling and Russia's economy is struggling. Now, that's fake news, that's misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, dangerous rhetoric, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But let's keep going. Let's carry on before I show you how that stuff is fake and what he's saying isn't true concerning those countries, right? At a hotel fundraiser where the donor audience was largely Asian American, Biden said the upcoming U.S. election was about freedom, America, and democracy. That sounds like a joke. The election is definitely not about freedom, America, and democracy. If this is something that's supposed to be coming on the side of the Democratic Party, and that the nation's economy was thriving because of you and many others. Remember, he was talking to a room filled with Asian Americans. Joe Biden proceeded to say, why? Because we welcome immigrants, Biden said. Look, think about it. Why is China stalling so badly economically? Why is Japan having trouble? Why is Russia? Why is India? Because they're xenophobic. Duh. Because they're xenophobic and they don't want immigrants. Tell me this doesn't sound like Biden attempting to justify the migrant crisis. In my opinion, as far as I'm concerned, that's what he's doing, because what he's saying is not true. What he's saying about Japan, Russia, China, and India is not true, and especially not India. Especially not India. And we're going to get into more of that and why that's not true in a minute. But as it pertains to these countries being xenophobic, as we speak, there are people from all over the world, including Americans, who are currently living in China, working in China, and going to school in China. Also, let's not forget the fact that China, by and large, is our enemy. China is one of our adversaries, just like Russia. But just like in Russia, you have the same thing going on. Americans live in Russia. People from all over the world live in Russia. People from all over the world who are not Russians work in Russia. And those are our adversarial nations that are supposed to be, very bad people. And I don't know. I'm not saying that they aren't. But my point is that what he's saying is not true. These are not xenophobic nations. What he's doing is saying that what he's attempting to say is that the reason that they're struggling and we're not is because we have open borders and we let everybody in this country willy-nilly. And if you guys would do the same, well, then you wouldn't be struggling the way that you do. But once again, that simply isn't true. That's not true. The president added, immigrants are what makes us strong. Not a joke. That's not hyperbole. because we have an influx of workers who want to be here and want to contribute. Let me make a quick amendment to that. I think what he meant to say is that because we have an influx of low wage workers that are coming into the country to undermine the wages of working class America by taking jobs that should be paying a proper wage to American citizens and giving those jobs to illegal immigrants for essentially extremely low wage, under the table money, like what's happening in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that we covered on this channel as it pertains to illegal immigrant children working in factories across Grand Rapids and across many, many states and cities in this nation. Okay. That's what he actually meant. That's what he's actually talking about when he's saying because we have an influx of workers. He's talking about illegal immigrant workers getting that under the table money, getting that cheap labor money that you should be getting paid an honest wage for, but you're not, because we have an influx of, like he said, those who are willing to accept that low wage under the table money. There was no immediate reaction from either the Japanese or Indian governments. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said Biden was making a broader point about the US's posture on immigration. Well, once again, what is the United States posture on immigration, at least as of now? Open borders. I mean, is it not obvious? It's extremely obvious to me. It's very obvious to you as well. So that's what he's talking about. Biden went as far as to insult our allies that we need, especially if we're getting into some sort of conflict with China and Russia, right? Allies that we need. He was willing to offend them to justify open borders here in America. Now, what did happen and what followed up after this is that Japan and India did reply. And I want to get into that as well. I want to get into what they stated, right? In this article, it reads here, Japan and India rejects Biden's comments describing them as xenophobic countries. Japan and India on Saturday decreed remarks by U.S. President Joe Biden describing them as xenophobic countries that do not welcome immigrants, which the president said during a campaign fundraising event earlier this week. Japan said Biden's judgment was not based on an accurate understanding of its policy. Sounds like misinformation, disinformation. Sounds like dangerous rhetoric. I'm going to repeat that again. Japan said Biden's judgment was not based on an accurate understanding of its policy, while India rebutted the comment, defending itself as the world's most open society, according to India. That's what they stated. Japan is a key U.S. ally, and both Japan and India are part of the Quad, a U.S.-led informal partnership that also includes Australia in countering increasingly assertive China in the Indo-Pacific. The White House said Biden meant not to offend and was merely stressing the U.S. was a nation of illegal immigrants. That's my amendment. He said that we're a nation of immigrants. We're a nation of illegal immigrants. An additional 12 million and counting, right? And as far as a more accurate counting is concerned at this point in time, if we're factoring in the Yale study that stated that we actually had at the time, this was in 2021, I think, when the Yale study came out, the Yale study stated that in 2021, the accurate count of illegal immigrants in the nation was 20 million. Not that, not that 11 million number that they've been parroting for over a decade now, but the real count is 20 million, according to the Yale study. And if we take the Yale study and we put that on top, it was 22 million. It was 20 million. And if we take that and we add on top of that the additional 10 million that have come into the country under Biden's administration, right? I believe it's 8 million illegal immigrants that have been caught that we know of, right? And around 2 million gotaways. What is that? About 32 million that we have in here. About 30 to 32 million illegal immigrants that are in the country right now. So we are definitely a nation of illegal immigrants, not a nation of immigrants, a nation of illegal immigrants. Let me start this paragraph over again. The White House said Biden meant no offense and was merely stressing that the U.S. was a nation of immigrants, saying he had no intention of undermining the relationship with Japan. In New Delhi, India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar on Saturday also rebutted Biden's comment, saying India was the most open society in the world. And I quote, "I haven't seen such an open, pluralistic, and diverse society anywhere in the world. We are actually not just not xenophobic, we are the most open, most pluralistic, and in many ways, the most understanding society in the world," Jaishankar said at the roundtable organized by the Economic Times newspaper. Jaishankar, the Indian External Affairs Prime Minister, if I'm saying your name wrong, which I know I am, my apologies. But this is a very important point that he's going to state right here. This is a very important point that he's going to state right here, Jaishankar, right? That just proves that this is more misinformation, disinformation, dangerous rhetoric coming from Joe Biden, right? Jaishankar also noted that India's annual GDP growth is 7% and said, and I quote, "You check some other countries' growth rate and you'll find an answer." And he was flexing. Why was that a flex? Because India's GDP growth rate is 7%. Meanwhile, as you see in blue, the US economy grew by 2.5% in 2023, according to government figures. So in a nation like ours that is a nation of illegal immigrants, in 2023, we had GDP growth of 2.5%. Meanwhile, a nation like India, which is an open society that allows immigrants to come and go legally, that's the key word, legally, their GDP growth was 7%. Their economic growth is far outpacing the US's. Yet Biden was allowed to sit up there and lie and said that their economy is struggling because they don't accept immigrants and because they're xenophobic. That clearly isn't true. That's clearly a lie. And also what I have here, it states India, which is the world's largest population, enacted a new citizenship law earlier this year by setting religious criteria that allows fast tracking naturalization for Hindus, Farsis, I think it is. Is it Farsis, Sheiks, Buddhists, Jains. I've never heard of that. Jains. I know I'm not saying that right. Jains and Christians who fled to India from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, while excluding Muslims. Yeah, no, I guess they're not fast tracking Muslims right now, but I'm sure a society as open as India will get to that eventually. But right now, they said we're gonna hold off on the Muslim brothers and sisters coming from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. We're gonna hold off on them right now. You know, we're not gonna fast track you guys into citizenship yet, but basically all other religions, you know, have at it. We're gonna fast track you. The point of me pointing that out, though, is that what is it? The Minister of Foreign Affairs, I believe it was. What is this? The External Affairs Minister. What he's stating is true. They are an open, pluralistic, diverse society. It's a fact. The only difference between India and America is that they do it through legal means, where in the US, we just have open borders. And another thing too that I want to get to, I don't believe I have it highlighted, but concerning India, concerning Japan, Japan has always had strict immigration laws, right? They've always had strict immigration laws. And they've loosened it up as of recent. I believe as recent as this year, they've loosened up their immigration laws. Now, obviously, they're not doing the whole illegal immigration thing. You just can't wash up on the shores of Japan like you can do here in America in San Diego, right? You can't do that in Japan. But they are loosening up their immigration situation because what they're dealing with right now is a extremely low birth rate. And if I remember correctly, last year they recorded their lowest birth rate ever since they began recording birth rates in 1899. That's crazy. That is wow. That's wow. And clearly with the birth rate that low in Japan, because of how strict their immigration rules are, they're able to forecast that essentially they're not going to have anybody to live and work in the country because the older folks are outnumbering the younger people because no one's being born, right? So now by sheer necessity, they have to open up their society a little bit more. But my point for bringing that up is this, because I know somebody will probably try to bring that up. We'll say, well, Japan did have a very strict, had very strict immigration policies. Having very strict immigration policies doesn't by default make you xenophobic. It just means that they have pride in their country and wanted to maintain the cultural fabric of the nation. That's all that means. And they didn't want that shooken up or changed by having this mass influx of folks coming into the country from all over the world, switching that and changing that around. There's nothing wrong with that. And it worked out fine for them, honestly, until it didn't anymore, which it doesn't right now. It's not working out for them now. But once again, that doesn't make them xenophobic, and it didn't make them xenophobic. That's simply their prerogative. As far as we have all known throughout the years, and from as far as I've been alive, Japan's always been a free and open society. That if you want to go there and visit, you're free to go there and visit. They're not living under any type of tyrannical rule, right? So to put that on Japan, just like how Biden put that on India, just to justify illegal immigration here in this country, is crazy. It's completely crazy. Now what I want to do is switch lanes a little bit. That does it for this portion here. And what I want to do is that I want to give you guys a quick sneak peek of what we're going to discuss in tomorrow's stream. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's stream. Let me see if I can put the thumbnail for tomorrow's screen up right now. Where is it at? Here it goes. All right, so I'm uploading it now. Tomorrow's stream is going to be about this: border towns becoming war zones over migrant crisis. Yeah, border towns are becoming a war zone. It's getting crazy out here. And when I say border towns, talking about border towns on the opposite side, right, in the Mexico side. But Joe Biden's migrant crisis is exaggerating. It's greatly exaggerating issues between Mexican cartels that were already in existence. So once again, I'm not going to sit here and say that Joe Biden is the reason that the cartels in Mexico are going back and forth with each other. That's been happening. But the migrant crisis has exaggerated those tensions because of how much more lucrative, bringing over illegal immigrants is. It's so much more lucrative now for these cartels to do this. And I want to pull up this article for you very quickly. Two of them, like I said, just teaser articles, right? Two teaser articles that are going to lead us into tomorrow's stream. Check this out right here. Mexico sends 600 soldiers to border states amid spike in violence. 600 troops, because that's how bad things are getting. let's hop into this article very quickly. And please hit the like button if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. That contributes to the growth of the channel. The article reads as such. Mexico has sent 600 troops to border states in Tamaulipas and Nuevo León amid a new spike in violence. Criminals attacked a Mexican army installation last week in the town of Miguel Alemán, and armed clashes between rival gangs also were reported there on Monday. This is taking place in a region formerly dominated by the Zetas drug cartel and now fiercely contested by splinter groups and the rival Gulf cartel, an international security expert says. Who are the Zetas now? Because the Zetas is a drug cartel that now, for the most part, has been disbanded, right? Its leaders have been either deleted and or arrested. So the Zetas have now broken down into a bunch of splinter groups, and these groups are now going at it alongside with their rival, the Gulf cartel, to take control of the region that they're in. Not simply because of drug transactions, we'll say, right, for lack of better words, or to keep things safe on YouTube. Not simply for drug transactions, but because of how lucrative the migrant crisis is for cartels, right, as it pertains to moving illegal immigrants across the border through Mexico. Let's get into a little bit of who the Zetas are very quickly as we start closing things out. Violent Mexican drug gang Zetas taking control of migrant smuggling. Now, this article was from 2014. The Zetas had control over the migrant smuggling situation for quite some time until they were disbanded, right? And once again, now that they've been disbanded, their leaders have been deleted. Many of them are in jail. It's chaos because the area is so lucrative. Now everybody's going at it. More so than usual. The situation has been more exaggerated. One of Mexico's most powerful criminal gangs has muscled into the migrant smuggling racket, changing what had been a relatively benign, if risky, industry of independent operators into a centralized business that often has deadly consequences for those who try to operate outside of it. Los Zetas, who earned a reputation for brutally gunning down thousands of Mexicans in the ongoing battle for drug smuggling routes in the United States, now control much of the illicit trade of moving migrant workers toward the U.S. border, experts in the trade say. That's a very interesting choice of word. Migrant workers. You mean, illegal immigrants. But that's who they were, past tense, because they don't exist anymore. But the region that they controlled was making them a lot of money. And now that they're no longer in existence anymore, and with the migrant crisis being so much more lucrative than it was back then in 2014, these border towns are now turning into war zones. But like I stated, that's for tomorrow's stream. That's for tomorrow's stream. As it pertains to today's stream, we're finished and we're done. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video out on your social media platforms. And also don't forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link is in the description box below and will be pinned in the comment section once the stream ends. And also once the stream ends, what should happen is that you will be redirected into tomorrow's stream where we're going to get into what I just discussed. So allow this stream to redirect you to tomorrow's stream. Hit that like button and I'll catch you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Have a great evening and a safe one. Peace.